Hola a todos. Welcome back to the Valencia Property Podcast, your go-to source for everything related to living, buying and renting in Valencia and Spain. The only podcast not sponsored by HelloFresh, ShipStation, some random VPN, Shopify, or in fact, any corporate entity. Our only interest is giving you facts about moving to Valencia and Spain, and the facts about what awaits you when you get here, and then selling you a property, of course. I'm Graham, and in the course of over 50 episodes, I've guided you through some of the most common and uncommon aspects about moving to and living in Valencia, along with my team at Valencia Property, the #1 real estate agency for foreign buyers in the region. Today, as usual, we've got a packed episode covering medium-term rentals, a key money-saving tip for buyers, the rise of co-living, and why it depends is the answer to so many questions. Plus, we'll break down the latest updates to Spain's visa process because, yes, things have changed again. And we'll talk about that pesky little proposal to introduce 100% tax for foreign buyers on Spanish property and why it probably won't happen. I could go out on a limb and say it definitely won't happen, but I'll say probably. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. Let's get going. Let's kick things off with a trend we're seeing more of, medium-term rentals. In a recent blog post, we talked about how these rentals, typically 3 to 11 months, are becoming a win-win for both owners and tenants. For owners, medium-term rentals mean fewer vacancies and less turnover hassle compared to short-term lets. You're also avoiding the strict regulations of holiday rentals, and they are only going to get stricter. And for tenants, think flexibility. Maybe you're waiting for your visa paperwork, testing out a neighbourhood before buying, or just want a trial run of life in Valencia without a long-term commitment. Perhaps you want to try different areas and lifestyles before you buy. Maybe you just want a Schengen boat hole for a 3-month escape from your increasingly authoritarian regime. I couldn't possibly comment about which countries I'm talking about there. USA. The reasons are many and varied. The demand is especially high among digital nomads, expats in transition, and even locals relocating for work or even getting some work done on their house and needing a place to live while the work goes on. So if you're a property owner, this could be your golden middle ground. You get a reliable tenant without the worries of having someone in your property for years without you being able to use it. Of course, you can read more about this in the blog post from last month. And the link, of course, is in our show notes. Every episode has show notes. You should click on all the links there and read more and then contact us. Next up, a tip that could save you thousands when buying in Spain. Put the drum roll on. Money transfer companies will save you oodles compared to traditional banks, and now even more so. We've said it before, but it's worth repeating. The sticker price isn't the full picture. Between the transfer tax, ITP, notary fees, registry costs, and maybe even VAT for new builds, expenses will add up to 15 to 16% of the purchase price on a property. Therefore, getting the most for your money is key. And here's the pro tip. It's all about how your bank rips you off at both ends, not just when you send it, but when it arrives. American banks are the worst. UK banks are not far behind. Other countries are a mixed bag. Swedish banks, for example, are usually excellent. Just to let you know, though, here are the main ways in which banks can charge you for moving and using your money, and some of them you won't even realise. Firstly, there's a fixed charge for making an international transfer. The exchange rate they use is calculated at tourist rates, maybe even at best at business rates. They're not calculated at the real rates. There's a hidden charge added into the transfer process after sending. It's often called the processing fee. Processing means pressing a button. The receiving bank charges for taking the money from a foreign transfer. So if you're sending from the USA or the UK to Spain, the receiving bank here in Spain will charge for receiving any money that comes from abroad, even if it's in euros. There's a commission for emitting the bank drafts to pay for the property, and we'll talk about the traditional ways of paying for property after this. And there's a commission for emitting OMF transfers directly to owners. This is becoming more popular. It's a common way of paying now, but the bank still charges for it, and they charge as much as they do for emitting the bank drafts. Even if you send the money directly to the notary rather than a bank to transfer the funds to the owner, the notary will have a fee for this service. For years, we've been saving people money on these costs by recommending you to use currency companies for moving money from one country to another. The savings are often astounding, especially when we're talking about large amounts of money being moved. Now, though, we have an excellent new way of even avoiding the need for a Spanish bank account on purchase via one of these currency companies. We'll still expect you to open an account here for utility bills and more if you want. And you can read about this new way of avoiding these fees in the show notes at the link and the full description. But let's just tell you here what it involves. Last month, I got a demonstration of a new system of payment from Currencies Direct. Notaries are loving it down south. And when I say down south, I mean on the Costa del Sol. It's working really well down there, especially when both parties involved in the transaction are foreign. There are two traditional ways that properties are paid for in Spain, and they both require the funds to be in a Spanish bank. The first and most common method, expected by many Spanish sellers still, bank drafts. These are checks from your bank which you hand over to the sellers and the notary, and the sellers will give you the keys. The notary witnesses the payment and the delivery of those keys and signs the property over to the buyer. The second method, more in vogue in the last couple of years because it's quicker, is an OMF transfer. OMF meaning Order of Movement of Funds. Supposedly it's instant, but in effect it takes 15 to 30 minutes to banks within the OMF system, and for example, ING Direct is not in that system. See our article about that in the show notes. OMF transfers are gaining popularity. However, the new system through Currencies Direct is just as quick, or even quicker when both parties have a Currencies Direct wallet. More importantly though, it is totally and utterly free to use. It doesn't cost a percentage of a transfer amount or a fixed fee. Equally, your account from where the money is sent is a VBAN. Now, in Spain, you have an IBAN. In most countries, you have an IBAN with your bank account. But the VBAN is a virtual IBAN with a Spanish prefix, that is ES and 2 numbers. This means it can be used for payments in Spain, such as utilities and subscriptions. We're not saying it completely eliminates the need for a Spanish bank account, as you may want or need one for business or to build up a credit history or mortgage payments, for example. But it's definitely useful. So how does it work? First, you sign up for an account with Currencies Direct. Ask them about their property pay system. They will create a wallet for you to deposit your funds. Obviously, if your funds are in a different currency, they'll convert to euros at the best market rates. Your money stays in your Currencies Direct wallet with no need to transfer it into your bank. You can use this wallet yourself, or you can authorize your legal representative to disburse the funds to the seller. To do this, Currencies Direct will require an authorization to be filled in, and you'll need to give your legal representative access to your funds wallet. This is an excellent way of giving them access to your funds only, not to the rest of your bank account, where you may have lots of money. The disbursements of funds are arranged beforehand for seller, notary, agent, whoever else you may need to pay, as you can introduce the bank accounts that will be paid into either another Currencies Direct wallet where the transaction will be instant, or the Spanish bank account of the seller where the transaction is quick. Each payment requires an online signature to be actioned, which you can do yourself or your legal representative can also do it. The PDF of the payment for the property is then sent to you to share with the notary to prove the payment. That needs to be added into the deed, of course. The benefits are obvious. So how much can you save? Well, until now, you could save up to 3% on the rate of exchange compared with the banks. And you also lose the fees associated with the transfer and the reception of the funds in the bank. You save on the cost of bank drafts and transfers within Spain. Now you also save by totally avoiding those final extra costs, the costs of emitting the bank draft, the cost of doing an OMF. It really is a no-brainer to be using a currency company. However, because there is always a however. Many people say to us, I'm using Wise, Revolut, or any of a number of challenger banks or services. You can and you will save money compared with traditional banks using these methods of payment. But the service from a currency company specializing in these transactions is not only normally better and cheaper, but also guaranteed. Currencies Direct, for example, is recognized by the Bank of Spain, has a license to operate all over Europe, and most importantly of all, in the United States. All of the United States, and the rest of North America, of course. Your funds are safe. Want to know more? Then simply take a look at the link in the show notes and read everything about this new method of payment. It's worth your while. You'll save a lot of money. Now, let's talk co-living. Again, we wrote last month about co-living, a growing trend in Valencia and across Spain. Co-living spaces offer private bedrooms with shared common areas, and they often include perks like cleaning, co-working spaces, community events. It's perfect for young professionals, remote workers, or anyone who wants affordability without isolation. Prices in Valencia can range from $500 to $1,200 a month, depending on location and amenities. But is it for you? If you thrive in social settings and pay utility bills, for example, absolutely. If you're craving privacy or have a family, maybe not. As always, it's about finding the right fit. As usual, you can read more in the link at the show notes and see whether co-living is for you. The next section we talk about, it depends. Well, why it depends is the answer in Spain. Ever noticed how many real estate questions get the answer, it depends? How much tax will I pay? It depends. Should I buy or rent? It depends. Which visa is best? It depends. Well, there's a reason for that. Spanish bureaucracy loves nuance. Your residency status, income source, property location, even your nationality can change the answer we give. That's why we always say, give us the full picture so we can give you the right advice. Want to know more about this frustrating but often necessary answer? Then go to the link in the show notes, because if we have to suffer with that answer when we do anything, then so do you. Joking. Which brings us to another drum roll. The latest visa updates. Let's talk about the visa updates, because if there's one thing we know, it's that Spanish immigration rules love to keep us on our toes. First, and for all of you who continue to ask, the Golden Visa. As of April, Spain scrapped the Golden Visa program for real estate investments. That means no more residency by property purchase for €500,000. If you're banking on that route, unfortunately, that ship has now sailed. Next, the digital nomad visa. How has that changed? Well, despite rumours of simplification, the process is still as paperwork heavy as ever. You'll need to prove remote income, health coverage, and clean criminal records. No shortcuts here. However, renewals are now for 2 years rather than 1, so fewer papers to collect over time. And for student visas, well, the rules have actually tightened. It's now harder to convert a student visa into a long-term work or residency permit. If you're studying in Spain with plans to stay, you'll need to plan ahead carefully. There's no easy switch anymore. Let's face it, the switch wasn't easy before, but it was possible. And one thing here, there's no easy switch anymore yet. This may change when the full details are published or when the government realizes what it's actually done, because it seems at the moment they're a bit confused by their own proposed legislation. So what's the takeaway? Spain's visa landscape is shifting and not necessarily in favor of smoother processes. As always, the key is to get expert advice early, double-check requirements, and never assume last year's rules still apply. For example, if you're doing a Google search, make sure you put into your parameters anything written in the last month, because stuff that you read from last year is now not applicable. We'll keep you posted if anything changes on this podcast, on our blog, and generally if you call me and have a chat. But for now, brace for bureaucracy, because that's what you're going to find. And finally, and probably the most important thing for everyone who's listening, that 100% tax thing. I'm still of the opinion it won't happen. But as usual, forewarned is forearmed. So here we go with the proposal and what we propose to do about it. A few months back, we posted about an idea floated by the government here in Spain to tax purchases of property to non-resident, non-EU citizens at 100% of the purchase price, effectively making a 500,000 purchase 1 million. My response and advice was, don't panic, at least not until we see the details. I was on the TV in the UK, I was on the radio in the UK saying, don't panic, it probably won't happen. You can see the post in the show notes. I said that those reporting it as not being 100% tax on property, but 100% increase in property taxes to be paid, were probably wrong. It was never that. And to think there were legal firms who read the proposals and came up with that rubbish. They were wrong, and they've not admitted it. I also said that it will probably never happen. And this week, the government presented their draft proposal to Parliament, which is the next step. My response remains, don't panic still. It will probably never happen. And even if it does, we already have ways around it, judging by what the proposal is. So what are the birth facts? The government is insisting that it wants to charge non-EU, non-resident buyers 100% on their purchase of Spanish property. But, and there is a but in this, just like there was a however earlier, it will not be charged on new builds, only on second-hand property. Now, we sell 95% of the stuff we sell is second-hand property, so this should affect us if it happens, but it won't. New builds are taxed in a different way to second-hand property. Second-hand property is taxed as ITP. An ITP is Impuesto de Transmisiones Patrimoniales. New builds, because nobody's lived there before or anything, are taxed as Impuesto de Valor Añadido, or as we know it in the UK, for example, value-added tax. VAT. The tax the government wants to raise is the ITP. This is the first watering down, and I'm going to tell you why it's been watered down. At least, this is what I think happened. In my opinion, the building lobby has spoken to the government and said, "What the actual fuck are you doing?" in a very loud voice. This is because when somebody buys a property off-plan or during construction and they don't know when building will be finished and at what time they will be able to pay and take possession without knowing the applicable tax at that moment, what happens? Well, the sales funnel closes up. Some builders aiming at the foreign market, for example, most of those on the Spanish coast, would be forced into almost immediate bankruptcy and wouldn't be able to complete projects for which they've bought the land already. So I think the building lobby has got hold of the government by the short and curlies and said, "Are you mental?" Anyway, there's an unintended consequence which will come out of this if it happens. It will raise the price of all new builds as they now have greater demand, because any foreigner coming here is going to say, well, I'm not buying a second-hand property where I have to pay 100% tax. I'll buy a new build where I only have to pay 10. There are other problems, and we go into that in our article. And of course, you can read it in the show notes. But suffice to say that legal challenges, parliamentary opposition, European oversight, and many other reasons will probably kill off the bill. And if they don't, well, there are lots of ways and means around it, so stay tuned. If it happens, then I've been assured by 2 separate lawyers that we already have the way around it figured out. And finally for this week, it got hot last week. And so here comes the summer. Regarding our work here at Valencia Property, as usual, we are mostly closed for the month of August. If you tell us you'll be coming in the middle of August to look at properties, then we'll be putting you off that idea. We have talked about why before, but the main reasons are owners being away, properties being rented out at high prices for the summer, agents being closed, notaries being away, lawyers being away, the difficulty in getting anything official done, and the fact that it's actually difficult to work in the heat of the day in the middle of August. For those of you who cannot avoid your visit being in August, then we'll see what we can do. Someone from our team might be around to help you out, but there are no guarantees, and equally your choice is more limited. There won't be as many properties to see, and let's face it, the market is tight. There aren't many properties to see in the first place. Book your visit with us as soon as possible at all times of the year. but especially in the summer, and try to avoid August. Because if you just turn up a day before, then I'm sorry, we can't help you. And probably no other agent will be able to help you too, because they're busy as well. You can see how to work with us at Valencia Property at the link in the show notes. Read it, get in touch with us, let us help you. And that's it for today. If you've got questions about visas, rentals, why Spanish bureaucracy loves the phrase, "it depends," drop us a message at information@valencia-property.com. Don't forget to check out the blog post linked in the show notes. And if you're enjoying the podcast, share it with a friend who's dreaming of coming to Valencia or coming to Spain. Hasta luego, and happy house hunting with us here at Valencia Property. We'll speak next month.